the British Empire. A name that echoes through the annals of history. The very name conjures up images of grandeur and power, vast armies in red coats marching in unison, a symbol of military might and discipline, ships laden with tea, spices and treasures from distant lands, sailing across the world, connecting continents and cultures. A queen, Victoria, whose reign seemed to stretch on forever, embodying the spirit of an era. At its peak, the British Empire was the largest the world had ever seen, a vast dominion that defied imagination. It spanned every continent, ruling over a quarter of humanity, a testament to its unparalleled reach and influence. To say the sun never set on the British Empire wasn't just a boast, it was almost literally true. From the bustling markets of India to the vast plains of Africa, the empire's presence was felt everywhere. This vast dominion did not appear overnight. It was the result of centuries of exploration, conquest and colonization. It was built over centuries, brick by bloody brick, through wars, treaties and relentless ambition. Ambition, trade and warfare were the tools of this empire's creation. The British were masterful traders, shrewd diplomats and formidable warriors. From the small island nation of England, a global power emerged, shaping the destiny of nations and leaving an indelible mark on the world we know today. The British influence can be seen in the legal systems, languages and infrastructures of many countries. Understanding the British Empire is to understand a large part of modern history. Its impact on global politics, economics and culture is profound and far-reaching. Its rise and fall are a story of ambition and power, but also of the consequences of conquest and the enduring legacy of colonialism. The empire's expansion brought about significant changes, both positive and negative, in the regions it controlled. It is a story filled with both triumph and tragedy, heroes and villains, innovation and exploitation. The British Empire was a complex entity with achievements in science, industry and culture, but also a history of oppression and exploitation. This is the story of how a nation of shopkeepers, as Napoleon famously quipped, built an empire on which the sun never set. The British were known for their entrepreneurial spirit and their ability to adapt and innovate. But as with all empires, the sun eventually did set, leaving behind a changed world and a complex legacy that continues to shape our present. The end of the British Empire marked the beginning of a new era, with former colonies gaining independence and forging their own paths. The story of the British Empire does not begin with conquering armies. It begins with merchants. These merchants were the pioneers of a new era, driven by the promise of wealth and the allure of the unknown. Companies like the East India Company, chartered in 1600, were the early architects of empire. They were granted monopolies on trade, allowing them to operate with the power of a state, complete with their own armies and navies. Driven by the lucrative spice trade, they established trading posts in India and Southeast Asia. These posts were not just commercial hubs, but also strategic points of control, influencing local politics and economies. These outposts, initially focused on commerce, became the seeds of empire. Over time, they grew in size and influence, transforming from simple trading stations into fortified settlements. The English were not alone in their desire for overseas riches. Other European powers such as Spain, Portugal and the Netherlands were also in the race, each vying for dominance in the lucrative trade routes. Spain, Portugal and the Netherlands were all rivals in this global game. Their ships crisscrossed the oceans, establishing colonies and trading posts, often coming into conflict with one another. Competition for colonies and resources led to frequent conflicts. Naval battles and skirmishes were common as each nation sought to protect its interests and expand its influence. England's navy, bolstered by victories against the Spanish Armada and later the Dutch, gave them a crucial edge. These victories not only secured their trade routes but also established England as a formidable naval power. The colonization of North America offered a different path to empire. Unlike the trading posts in Asia, these colonies were meant to be permanent settlements, providing a new home for English settlers. Driven by a mix of religious freedom and economic opportunity, English settlers established colonies along the Atlantic coast. These colonies grew rapidly, fueled by the promise of land and the potential for prosperity. The resources of this new world, timber, tobacco, cotton, further fueled England's growing power. These commodities were in high demand in Europe, and their export brought immense wealth to the English crown and its merchants. The early British Empire was a patchwork of trading posts, colonies and conquered territories. Each piece of this patchwork played a role in the larger strategy of expanding British influence and control. It was driven by a complex mix of economic ambition, religious zeal, and a growing sense of national pride. The desire to spread Christianity, coupled with the pursuit of wealth and power, created a potent force for expansion. This potent mix laid the groundwork for the global empire that would follow. The foundations laid by merchants and early settlers would eventually support an empire that spanned the globe, influencing the course of history for centuries to come. The 18th century saw Britain emerge as a global superpower. Victories in wars against France and Spain expanded British territories in North America and the Caribbean. The sugar trade, fueled by the brutal system of slavery, brought immense wealth to Britain, but at a terrible human cost. However, this period also saw the first major setback for the British Empire, the American Revolution. The 13 colonies, angered by British taxes and policies, declared independence in 1776. After a long and bloody war, Britain was forced to recognize the United States of America. The loss of the American colonies was a shock to the British Empire. It showed that colonies could rebel and win their independence. But it also spurred Britain to look elsewhere for expansion, particularly to the east. The Jewel of India beckoned, offering new riches and opportunities for conquest. This period of the First British Empire was marked by both triumph and tragedy. It saw the rise of British power and wealth, but also the horrors of slavery and the loss of its American colonies. The seeds of both future glory and eventual decline were sown during this pivotal era. The 19th century witnessed the rise of the Second British Empire, with India at its heart. This period marked a significant transformation in the British Empire's global influence as it expanded its territories and solidified its dominance across various continents. The East India Company, initially a trading enterprise, gradually took control of large parts of India, exploiting internal conflicts and leveraging its military superiority. Over time, the company's influence grew, and it began to function as a quasi-governmental body, administering vast regions and establishing a strong foothold in the subcontinent. The vast wealth and resources of India, cotton, tea, spices, flowed into Britain, fueling its industrial revolution and consolidating its status as a global hegemon. The raw materials extracted from India were crucial in powering British industries, leading to unprecedented economic growth and technological advancements in Britain. The British Raj, as British rule in India was known, was a complex and often brutal affair. The administration was characterized by a rigid hierarchy and a deep-seated sense of racial superiority, which permeated every aspect of governance and daily life. The British implemented policies designed to assert their control and maximize profits, often at the expense of local populations. Heavy taxation, land revenue systems, and exploitative labor practices were common, leading to widespread poverty and suffering among the Indian populace. The Sepoy Mutiny of 1857, a bloody uprising against British rule, highlighted the tensions and resentment simmering beneath the surface. This rebellion, also known as the First War of Indian Independence, was a significant turning point, revealing the deep-seated discontent and the desire for self-governance among Indians. Despite the brutality and exploitation, the British also implemented some reforms in India, such as abolishing the practice of sati and investing in infrastructure projects like railways and canals. These developments were often touted as the civilizing mission of the British, aimed at modernizing and improving Indian society. However, these reforms were often driven by self-interest and did little to alleviate the fundamental inequalities of colonial rule. The benefits of these projects were largely reaped by the British, while the Indian masses continued to face economic hardships and social injustices. India, with its vast population and resources, became the crown jewel of the British Empire, a symbol of its power and reach. The subcontinent's immense contributions in terms of wealth, manpower and strategic importance underscored its pivotal role in maintaining British supremacy. However, the seeds of resentment sown during this period would eventually contribute to the empire's downfall. The growing nationalist movements, fueled by the injustices and exploitation faced under British rule, laid the groundwork for India's struggle for independence, which would ultimately lead to the disintegration of the British Empire and the emergence of a new post-colonial world order.